It's Sunday, December 29th, 2019. So as we're getting very close to entering 2020, a few things I expect to see take place. I expect to see lower interest rates. Expect to see continued cuts with interest rates. I expect to see the repo market on steroids. I expect that we're going to get more fake data, and I expect that we're going to hear more talk, more positive talk about the phase one China trade negotiation. So again, this market should continue to surge. Yes, there could be a pullback in January. It would not surprise me. But looking out right now for the first quarter 2020, I don't see anything stopping these markets as long as they keep propping them up with fake data, as long as the Fed continues dumping hundreds of billions of dollars into the repo market, as long as the Fed continues to cut rates, as long as the Fed continues to buy into these markets, there's nothing that's going to stop these markets. But what I also see in 2020 is the United States economy continuing to falter. It is going to continue to erode. It's going to continue to stall. And we, in my opinion, have already begun the recession. I believe it is going to magnify with intensity as I see more and more people that will be laid off in 2020. I see bigger layoffs coming, unemployment ticking up, and I just see the 2020 economy really suffering, while at the same time the stock market goes up. So this is going to be a very interesting time here in U.S. history as we have a booming stock market, and at the same time we have an economy that is stagnant, an economy that has already begun the recession, and an economy that is heading straight into a recession and then, a depression, and then straight down to a meltdown. That's what I see coming in 2020. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go into a massive depression in 2020, but I do see this recession continuing into 2020. I see it magnifying. I see it getting more intense. I see unemployment ticking up, and I just see the economy slowing down even more than it was in 2019. Anybody out there that can tell me the economy was booming in 2019, you are overdosing on something. You need to come back down to earth. I have no shortage of data regarding the economy and how sluggish and how ill this economy is, and it's about to get much worse. There is no doubt people are very confused right now when they see the stock market at all-time highs, but then they look at what's happening in the economy, or they're looking at what's happening in their own personal lives, their savings, the amount of debt that they have, living paycheck to paycheck, what's happening with their job, and they just see the stores going out of business. I'm sure they're reading a lot of the same data I'm reading, and it's confusing. How in the world can the stock market be going up while the economy is heading into this recession? And apparently it's a lot easier to prop up and manipulate the stock market than it is the economy. But you know, when we read articles like this one just came out in Zero Hedge today, worst market in 30 years, 400,000 commodity rail cars sit idle amid industrial recession. This is another clear example of another industry that is suffering here in America, and it's rail cars. And it's a very good article. If you get a couple minutes, check it out. Make sure you verify, whoever you're watching, whoever you're listening to, make sure you verify these reports. In this article, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, PNC Financial Service Group, and Citigroup accumulated hundreds of thousands of commodity hauling rail cars in North America over the past decade. They thought that this would be profitable. Now it's a giant headache as many cars sit in storage. 400,000 rail cars. I mean, just think about how many rail cars that is. I don't know, Cowboy Stadium holds around 100,000 people, right? That would be the equivalent to 4 Cowboy Stadiums of people in rail cars. Just think about the enormity of the amount of rail cars that are in storage. 400,000 rail cars sit in storage with no use at all, and many are bank owned. Wells Fargo is sitting on, get this, Wells Fargo is sitting on 175,000 rail cars. Many cars are going to sit in 2020 as this industrial economy is going to continue to slow down even more than it is now. So this is another indicator that things are not so great. But remember, stock market is at all-time highs, but we have literally 500,000 rail cars sitting in storage. And most of this, now there's two ways you can look at it. There's regulations from the federal government that is part of this, but the main part is the economy. The economy is the main reason that 400,000 rail cars are sitting. Here's another article on Zero Hedge. 2020, the year of the oil bankruptcies. The bankruptcy boom has hit the oil and gas industry, and it's just getting started. And you know, if you just take a few minutes and read what's going on, you're going to look at things a whole lot differently. The industry has been teetering on the verge of mass hysteria for much of 2019 as record number of energy companies have folded. Amazing that we never hear about any of this. I rarely have heard any news about these companies folding throughout 2019. All we heard in 2019 was how good the trade negotiations were going with China. We didn't hear about rail cars sitting. We didn't hear, you know, about the energy companies filing bankruptcy. None of this. According to energy and restructuring law firm Hayes and Bonds, a grand total of 50 energy companies filed for bankruptcy during the first 9 months of 2019, including 33 oil and gas producers, 15 oil field service companies, and 2 midstream companies. But the media is crickets. We're just being told to get out to the malls, get online, use those credit cards, and keep consuming to keep this economy going. Now remember, GDP, manufacturing only makes up about 12% of GDP here in America. We're not producing anything. Now we have rail cars sitting. We're seeing the biggest oil and gas bust so far in our history since this boom has started, and it's about to get much worse. The biggest oil and gas bankruptcy of 2019 was EP Energy, which filed for bankruptcy in October. They were unable to pay $5 billion back. During the latest shale boom, American drillers binged on massive amounts of available debt as they capitalized on investors and financiers willing to gamble on the premise that fracking could be done significantly cheaper and more efficient than conventional drilling. The U.S. is now the world's largest oil producer, but prices have dropped levels well below the break-even point. That's going to be big trouble. So this is another industry on the brink of destruction here in America. We haven't heard anything about it, but it's about to get much worse as we head into 2020. So what does this tell you? Stock market booming, oil and gas literally falling off of a cliff here, the whole shale industry. And we have 400,000 rail cars sitting. We have 9,300 stores in 2019 that have closed up. The auto industry has fallen off of a cliff. Manufacturing has fallen off of a cliff. We've seen a slowdown or decrease in PMI in regards to the service sector. So where's the good news? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel that is going to pull us out of this? You know, the recession that has already begun that nobody wants to talk about, nobody wants to admit. They just want you to keep sucking you into this stock market. They want you buying stuff with money you don't have, and they want you to gamble the money that you do have in the stock market. Investors have become weary of the shale industry. Companies with junk-rated bonds have been defaulting on interest payments at record levels, while dozens of smaller drillers that took on too much debt are dropping like flies. Boy, it sounds like a lot of these corporations that took all this easy, cheap money and they can't produce anything. This is all going to catch up to Wall Street sooner or later, and it's starting to catch up to the energy sector here now. The market is no longer rewarding energy companies with aggressive expansion schemes, preferring instead to see profits and money return to shareholders. There are more distressed companies in the oil sector than in any other sector. But we shouldn't worry about anything. Your friends, my friends, are telling us not to be alarmed. Everything's going to be fine. But remember, how many credit cards can you use before you can no longer use them? How long can America run on a credit card? How long can America's households keep running up debt, running up credit cards before it ends? Michael Bradley, an energy strategist, says $30 to $40 billion of high-yield energy bonds are now at risk. These companies have little choice but to seek bankruptcy protection and restructure if they hope to see another day. We will see a massive shakeout in the industry, which means the consumer will have to contend with higher prices. That's what's coming. A lot of these companies are going to be shook out. They're going to be gone. They're going to go bankrupt. It's going to leave fewer and fewer companies, and that means that you're going to land up paying more money at the end of the day. I believe in 2020, many of us will look back at 2019. We'll look at 2019 as a year of the melt up. If we go back to 2018, December, when the Federal Reserve raised interest rates a mere 25 basis points, and the market literally crashed. I think we lost around 2,000 points in a week. And remember, the Fed promised that they were going to raise rates, they were going to shrink the balance sheet. And then once they saw what happened, immediately they did a 180, went back to expanding the balance sheet, went back to cutting rates, and I believe they will continue to cut rates into 2020. But 2019 was a year, to me, a wake-up year for many people. I think a lot of people really began to wake up. They began to see that a lot of these government institutions are corrupt, that there are many people that should be in prison because of this corruption that is taking place. Nobody is being held accountable. And we're seeing the corruption now in the banking sector, what the Federal Reserve is doing. And many people now understand that there is no connection between the real economy and the stock market. They now see that the Federal Reserve, the central bank, has one goal and one goal only, and that is to continue to kick this can down the road. It is going to continue to prop up these markets any way it has to. They have not been honest with the American people. Quantitative easing is taking place right now. They are buying $60 billion of treasury bills a month. They are injecting billions of dollars into the stock market and billions of dollars into the liquidity market. And so just ask yourself, if the Fed wasn't playing the puppet master here right now, we actually had a free market, where we would be. This thing would have collapsed a long time ago. And many people now are realizing that it's fake. And many people are getting very nervous about their money. They're worried about their pensions, their 401ks, their money markets. Many people aren't just looking at the blip on the screen and thinking that they're wealthy or they're paper millionaires. People now have real concern that, are they ever going to see that money? Are they ever going to get that money? And they understand that if something erupts tomorrow, there's a good chance that they're going to lose a lot of that money, if not all of it. Remember, if a Deutsche Bank implodes, we have big trouble here in America. And we don't know with this liquidity crisis, if we have a big bank here in America that's in trouble. Is the Fed pumping money, into one of our big banks? Is there something we don't know? Yes, there's plenty we don't know. They're doing all this because there's something going on, but they don't want to tell you, because if they do, there will be panic. People will be pulling money out of banks. They will be pulling money out of these markets. So, there's just so much going on, but we're going to look at 2019. And I will say this, many people that I know and that I've read down below in the comments Many people have begun to wake up, and they're getting very concerned with what is going on. They are starting to wake up. They're connecting the dots. They're putting this puzzle together, and they know something is very wrong. Look, the Fed just keeps printing money out of thin air and putting into the hands of the banks. The national debt continues to make new highs right along with the new highs of the stock market. Does this not add up? I mean, it's not adding up to me. It makes no sense. There's no fundamentals here. The wealth divide grows. The debt grows. Inflation grows. The cost of living grows. The cost of housing grows. The cost of education grows. The melt up is growing right along with this growing stock market. Something is going to give, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you believe everything's going to be okay, if you believe that the US dollar is going to be here for the next 100 years, if you believe the stock market is safe, if you believe that the banks are safe, if you believe that your pensions are safe, if you believe the financial institutions are safe, then go right ahead, keep investing in these markets, keep, investing in paper. I'm looking at things completely in a different direction. I don't believe the dollar is going to be here forever. I believe that it's the least healthy, or it might be the healthiest kid in the hospital, okay? But we're comparing it to a lot of other sick kids, okay? So when they say, well, the dollar is the strongest, currency in the world, well, look what you're comparing it to. It's a sick kid, but it's the least sickest kid in the hospital, but it's still sick, and it's on borrowed time, and it is going to be under severe threat with other currencies, especially coming out of China with a gold-backed yuan. This could be a real problem. But again, I don't trust paper. I don't trust banks. I believe in being my own central bank, and I believe you should be your own central bank. And I'm going to leave it with this. And there's a little bit of construction going on here, so if you hear any noise, I apologize. But I'm going to leave you with this. What we saw happen in New York last night was appalling. I'm not going to say too much. But what happened, most of you know, some people were really, really hurt. It's appalling. It's disgusting. It's quite demonic. And as I always say, be your own central bank. Be an independent human being, and that includes your security. It includes your finances, okay? It includes your health. You are responsible for you. We are seeing so many things happening, especially in our cities now in America, and especially in New York. It's really erupted into some serious violence. But what happened last night was just another warning sign of things to come. When this economy crashes, and it will, there are going to be very evil people roaming the streets, demonic, people who aren't going to like you because of what you have, what you look like, what you believe in, whatever. Just like these people last night, somebody didn't like them and did a lot of physical harm to them. So you have to be responsible for you. Make sure that you are topping off all your preps, food and water, all your metals, gold, silver, and make sure your number one prep is security, because somebody will just take your gold and silver. They will take your food. They will quite possibly just take your life. And I think if you think of yourself as your own central bank, as an independent, free-thinking human being, as somebody who can take care of their own security, their own finances, their own food, their own water, being self-sufficient, you're going to be a much harder person to kill physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm going to leave it there today. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you share this video with everyone you know. Share it all over social media. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, like this video. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification down below so that you are notified with the newest video. God bless America. God bless every one of you. Have a phenomenal beginning of the week.